what advice I would give to young people who are just starting in this best of all possible worlds. If you love what you do and you really, really want to do it, then embrace it with all your heart.
Honestly, just let that sink in for a minute. For generations, Julie Andrews felt untouchable. But today, the legendary star leads a very different, quiet life. No more constant red carpets, no packed concert halls, and no endless Hollywood industry appearances. So, what really happened to her? And how is she spending her days? Broadway did not just discover her, it stopped for her. Julie Andrews was born on October 1st, 1935. From the very start, her life felt slightly unusual. It seemed destined for something much bigger than the humble environment she came from. She did not become famous the normal way. There was no slow burn, no years of struggling in obscurity while waiting tables. Her rise was more like the industry suddenly noticing mid-sentence that something extraordinary was already standing right there. But the real story actually starts way earlier than the lights of Broadway. As a child performer back in Britain, Julie was already doing things that most adults could not manage. Her voice was unnervingly controlled. She could hit notes with such piercing clarity that people in the room would just go silent. That kind of raw reaction does not get ignored for long. It certainly was not for her. She was performing in music halls as a kid, sharing stages with adult acts, which sounds charming until you realize how tough that was. It was not polished theater. It was pure survival in front of a crowd that could turn on you in a second. One bad night and the audience would eat you alive. Julie learned very early on to never give them a reason. That intense discipline became her foundation. By her teens, she was already being called impossibly gifted in industry circles. That is the kind of phrase adults use when they simply cannot quite explain the talent they are watching. She was not just singing songs, she was commanding entire rooms. That control eventually carried her into the London stage world. When she moved into musical theater, things started shifting fast. She did not ease in as some background name. She was noticed almost immediately. Casting directors did not treat her like a newcomer. They treated her like a problem they had to solve. When someone is that naturally gifted, you wonder how to build a show around her. You have to figure out how to showcase her without making everything else feel smaller by comparison. Then came My Fair Lady, and her early story took a sharp turn. On stage, she was not just playing Eliza Doolittle, she was defining the role. Night after night, audiences were not just watching a character arc. They were watching Julie turn a simple transformation into something that felt almost spiritual. Her performance had a strange duality. It was raw vulnerability wrapped in absolute technical perfection. But while she was becoming Eliza, something else was happening behind the curtain. Hollywood was circling. When it came time to adapt My Fair Lady for the screen, the industry assumption was simple. You cast the biggest box office name, even if that name was not the person who actually built the role. So Julie was passed over. The part went to Audrey Hepburn. For a moment, that could have been the decision that quietly ended a rising career. The industry basically told her you are brilliant, but not quite marketable enough for the big screen. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of fading after that rejection, Julie doubled down on her strengths. She had presence, discipline, and a voice that could not be copied. And Hollywood almost unintentionally handed her the perfect response. Disney came calling. Not for a tiny role, not for a test, but for a lead character that didn't even exist yet. Mary Poppins. The moment she stepped into that role, everything about her theater discipline and stage precision clicked. It was like all those years of hard work had been building toward that exact perfect moment. People often miss this part. By the time she became Mary Poppins, she was not new. She was already tempered by years of immense pressure rejection and perfectionism that started long before the fame arrived. That is what made her dangerous in the industry sense. When someone enters Hollywood already fully formed, the system cannot control them. The machine cannot steer the trajectory anymore. It just has to stand back and watch it happen. The woman who once had it all. And this is where everything really clicks into place for us now. She did not walk into Hollywood as a blank slate. She walked in already built and ready to go. Disney did not discover her talent. They just aligned with something that had been tested in real time for years. That is why Mary Poppins never felt like a gamble. It felt like an inevitability, the industry finally catching up to her. someone operating at that elite level long before those cameras ever rolled. And the moment she took that part, everything the childhood shows the theater, grind, and getting cut from My Fair Lady finally clicked like a path she had been following. That was the thing about Julie Andrews back then. She wasn't rising anymore. She had officially arrived. If you grew up with movies, Julie Andrews was basically part of your childhood. Long before modern influencers or streaming stars, Julie was the definition of a true global icon. She became a household name thanks to Mary Poppins and later The Sound of Music. Those films didn't just succeed, they became cultural landmarks. For decades, it seemed Julie couldn't do wrong. She had elegance, charm, talent, and that legendary voice. The kind of voice that could fill an entire theater and give you actual goosebumps. Hollywood loved her audiences, adored her critics, praised her, and maybe most importantly, she truly seemed to love performing. That is why so many fans find her. Current quiet lifestyle is so bittersweet. It is not because she is battling some secret tragedy, not because she is fighting a confirmed major illness, but because the woman whose life was once pure music and public love now spends most of her time tucked away at home. It is a massive contrast. For someone who once stood at the center of global attention, Julie Andrews has become incredibly private. But how did one of the most visible stars in entertainment end up living such a low profile? The heartbreaking loss that changed everything. If you ask most people why Julie Andrews slowed down, they usually blame age. But the real turning point wasn't aging at all, it was her voice. If there is one event that completely shattered her world, it was the loss of her singing voice. Honestly, this part of her story still hurts to talk about. For years, that voice was her superpower. It was more than beautiful, it was iconic. Then came a medical procedure intended to fix some non-cancerous vocal issues. Instead of healing her, the surgery resulted in permanent lasting damage. The result devastated her. Imagine spending your life mastering as a gift that made you famous worldwide only to have it taken away. That is exactly what happened. Julie has spoken openly over the years about the pain. The recovery process was long and incredibly grueling. The reality that her famous 4-octave range would never return was something she had to slowly and painfully accept. Fans assume aging is why she stopped singing. It wasn't that simple. The loss was sudden, tragic, and deeply personal. Most people define themselves by their work. Julie Andrews was no different. Singing was not just a job, it was her identity. Even though she kept working in other ways, including voice acting, writing, and occasional roles, that golden chapter of her life never truly came back. Perhaps that is why fans describe her later years as sad. Not because she lacked success or family, but because she had to say goodbye to the thing she loved most. After the vocal surgery and leaving musicals behind, Julie Andrews didn't chase cheap fame. She pivoted. This is where her second act quietly began. The one casual fans don't even fully recognize. She moved into narration, writing kids' books, and voice work. Yes, voice acting, which is ironic considering the circumstances. She became the narrator of Bridget Jones's Diary, appeared in The Princess Diaries as Queen Clarice, and returned for the sequel, becoming a royal mentor figure in pop culture all over again. But notice something subtle. She stopped being the center of the story and started guiding it instead. There is a pattern in Hollywood that nobody talks about. When major stars step back, people assume they were pushed out, but sometimes they just choose less noise, less chaos, and less of everything demanding a performance on command. So when people say she disappeared, that is not entirely accurate. She didn't vanish. She simply shifted her energy. But public perception is a funny thing, because once you are no longer everywhere, people assume something must be wrong. Which brings us to the question everyone whispers, but rarely asks directly. If Julie could no longer rely on the gift that made her famous, where did she go? Why did she vanish from the spotlight? Here is where the rumors usually start. A celebrity disappears from view, and suddenly the internet starts writing its own wild stories. Over the last several years, Julie Andrews has rarely been seen in public. Every time a new photo pops up, people immediately start asking all the questions. Is she sick? Struggling hiding something? The truth is honestly much less dramatic. Julie just values her privacy. At 90 years old, she isn't chasing fame or online trends. She has no interest in every red carpet party. Instead, those close to her constantly say she is doing great and loving a quieter pace. Fans aren't used to seeing icons just vanish. When someone spends decades under the spotlight and then steps back, you really notice the silence. That is exactly what happened with Julie. Her rare cameos are events. Because they are so uncommon, some reports say one recent video was her first public moment in nearly 3 years. 3 years. Think about that. For a legend like Julie Andrews that is basically disappearing from public life, but does leaving the spotlight mean something is wrong? Not at all. It just means she is finally living life on her terms. Still, one recent sighting triggered a whole new wave of talk, and that is where things got wild. The Parkinson's rumors just would not quit. On May 7th, 2026, Julie Andrews sent a message. For the World Parkinson Congress in Phoenix, headlines popped up instantly, and as often happens online, people started connecting dots that did not exist. Viewers assumed Julie must have Parkinson's disease herself. Some treated the clip like a health update. But there is a major issue with that logic. No official diagnosis was shared. No representative has confirmed any illness. No verified source reported she has the condition. The entire point of the message was raising awareness and support. That is it. Yet the rumors flew anyway. It is a wild reminder of how fast gossip takes on a life of its own regarding our favorite stars. The public sees one rare video. They notice expected signs of aging. Then comes the worry. Then the wild theories multiply. For Julie Andrews, these rumors were just another example of fans struggling with her absence. Ironically, the video meant to help others ended up triggering talk about her own body. The facts are really simple. Julie helped with a Parkinson's awareness campaign. She has never announced having the disease, and major news coverage of that event focused entirely on the charity rather than personal health. If that is not the issue, what health battles is she actually facing? Just the reality of life at 90. Look, nobody avoids it. Aging, not stars, not royalty, not even Hollywood icons. Nobody. Julie Andrews turned 90 in October 2025. That is a massive milestone. And according to folks close to her, she is doing remarkably well, but she is not frozen in time. Sources mention the usual aches that come with growing older. She has reportedly been seen using a cane sometimes. For many fans even, seeing that was tough. We are talking about the woman who once twirled across hillsides singing about pure adventure. Time eventually catches up to everyone. Still, it is striking how positive most descriptions of her remain. Words like healthy fit and doing well keep appearing in recent reports about her. That is a long way from the scary rumors circulating online. The truth seems much less dramatic and a lot more human. She is 90. She moves slower. She loves home. She prefers peace over paparazzi. Honestly, most people her age would make the exact same call. One weird thing about celebrity culture is that fans expect famous people to stay exactly as they were 40 years ago. But life does not work like that. The star of Mary Poppins grew up. She became a grandmother, and now she is a 90-year-old icon enjoying a quiet chapter. But retirement hasn't stopped Julie from building new things. Hardly. She never really stopped working. This is the most surprising part of the story. Even after losing her legendary singing voice, after leaving the limelight, even after reaching an age where most people would have quit long ago, she is still creating. Julie and her daughter, Emma Walton Hamilton, have built an amazing partnership. Together, they have written children's books and kept developing new stories. Their latest picture book, Shy, hits shelves in August 2026. Think about that for a moment. At 90 years old, Julie Andrews is still putting real work into the world. That is Honestly, pretty incredible. While many fans focus on what she can no longer do, Julie seems much more interested in what she can still contribute. And perhaps that is the main reason she has remained such an admired Hollywood figure. She simply adapted. When singing became impossible, she found other creative outlets. When constant public appearances felt less appealing, she shifted toward private projects. When Hollywood changed, she changed with it. There is a massive lesson in that. Some people spend years fighting change. Julie appears to have learned how to work with it. Of course, having family nearby has also played a vital role in her later years, and that may be the biggest reason she seems so content despite everything she has lost. The quiet life she chooses today. Let us be honest, when it comes to famous celebrities and aging Hollywood legends, people often expect a major scandal, a shocking diagnosis, some type of messy family feud, financial troubles, or some secret disaster. We are used to fame being loud, constant, and highly visible. But the reality for Julie Andrews is both simpler and much more emotional than that. She lives quietly. She spends time with her family. She works on projects she truly enjoys. She avoids any unnecessary public attention. It is a peaceful life. Yet there is still a heavy sadness that hangs around her story. Not because Julie herself appears unhappy, because her fans remember what once was. They remember that voice, the legendary performances. They remember seeing her everywhere. Watching a beloved icon grow older can feel strangely personal. We struggle with the idea that our icons age into total stillness. We want them frozen in their prime, singing in perfect pitch forever. But real life does not work like that. Even the biggest legends eventually sit down. People project their own memories onto these stars. When Julie Andrews ages, audiences are reminded of their own passing years, too. That is partly why her story resonates so deeply. The woman represents an entire era, an era that continues slipping further into history. And yet she remains here, still thoughtful, still creative, still deeply admired, just much quieter. Maybe the saddest part is not how Julie Andrews lives today. Maybe it is the realization that time eventually changes every single legend, no matter how iconic they once were. Julie Andrews may not be standing on stage singing to sold out crowds anymore, but the truth is far less tragic than many of those rumors suggest. At 90, she is living a private life, staying creative, spending time with family, and choosing lasting peace over cheap publicity. The loss of her voice was undeniably heartbreaking, and watching a beloved icon grow older can be quite emotional for fans. But the story of Julie is not really about decline. It is about resilience, adaptation, and pure grace. The life of Julie Andrews right now is a bit more layered than most people expected, because what looks like absence from the outside might actually be deep peace on the inside. But I will throw it back to you. Do you think we unfairly expect our favorite icons to stay frozen in time just to make us feel more comfortable? Or is stepping back like this actually the most human part of the story? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I really want to know where you land on this one. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. And please share your favorite Julie Andrews movie or performance of all time in the comments below. I absolutely love to read those comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.